All right, everyone. Thank you and apologies that we ran over in our executive session. We apologize for that. Before I jump in, I just want to remind members of the public that if you want to participate in either of the public comment sessions, you should send a message via the chat function to the help desk. Again, just go to the chat, go to the help desk, and let Ms. Conway know that you would like to make a comment or ask a question during one of our public comment sessions, and she'll assist you with that. So you can do that at any time. So quickly moving in to the meeting for the president's report. Just a few things, just a welcome again to our new members and to our returning members. This week we have assigned mentors to our new members, so for any questions or concerns they may have. And I also want to say to all of to the entire board, we need to reconstitute the membership of the board committees. So I'd ask that over the course of the next week, if there are committees which you would like to be seated on, that you reach out to me either over phone or by email and express your interest to me. And we'll do our best to accommodate everyone's preferences. It's also my intention to reconstitute the policy committee that used to exist but no longer exists. So to reconstitute the policy committee as well. So keep that in mind when you're considering which committees you might want to serve on. So if folks could get that to me perhaps by the end of the week, that would be helpful so that we can get the committees assigned and get those out to everyone, ideally next week, if not at the following meeting. In the meantime, for the purposes of this meeting, I'll ask the existing committee chairs to cover their committees for the purposes of the agenda until we have new committee chairs. And that is all on my report. So I'll hand it over to Dr. Stankiewicz for the superintendent's report.
Well, thank you, Ms. Fuller. Appreciate it. So a couple things. Obviously, we want to go over our survey results from our last survey, and we'll be doing that in a minute. Before we do that, though, I want to address just obviously a lot that's gone on in the last week in our country and our world, primarily because I received a number of emails from folks over the weekend since my letter last week talking about that we have been providing resources for our staff to address the issues that occurred at the Capitol last week. People concerned about, how things like that are being presented, what, if any, potential bias in what that's potentially being presented. So I just want to address that, if I can for a moment. When we send resources to our staff, the resources are about strategies. They're not about content necessarily. They're about strategies to how to address difficult topics in the classroom, current events, controversial topics. It is not the position of the district that we would support any one particular candidate or party or agenda. That's not our role. Our role is to support our students and help them to help them research, to help them be able to sift through and find out what is good information, what is truthful information, so they can help, especially our older kids can make up their own minds for how they feel about something, present various sides of a topic. I would hope to think that we would all agree that the events that occurred at the Capitol last week were significant and dramatic, and certainly not here to argue the many sides of that. I think we can all agree that there are universal truths that we as school district employees work to follow. It is a universal truth that racism in any form is unacceptable. It is a universal truth that our democratic principles and ideals need to be upheld. There are certain universal truths that we as a school district will work to promote. And that's what we ask our staff members to do. So I just want to reassure people who think that we're coming in and saying, vote for this person over this person, or this person's lying and this person's not lying. That's not our role. Our role is to help our students either academically, emotionally, and intellectually navigate what is going on. and that's what we will commit to do. This time, in the past, we've done it, and in the future, we will continue to do it. Okay? So I just wanted to make sure everybody understands, how we see our role. Okay? Okay. Survey time.
Survey.
All right, so Ken, or is Mary Ann can pull it up?
Yeah, Mary.
Okay, Mary Ann, if you can share the screen, please. It's in the president's report, or excuse me, the superintendent's report. Ms. Fuller, if you would like to give the survey results, you're very welcome to do so.
Survey says.
Survey says. So, Mary Ann, if you can do that. There we go. Okay, very good. So we've established that this was the December 2020 parent staff survey being delivered today on the, okay, very fast. Can you go back one, Marion? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry. All right. So this was due on the 29th. You don't have to go back one. It just said that there were 429 staff responses. So overall, and so then we can start with this. So the first question was the district is currently on all remote, not anymore, but back in December, how comfortable? And I had an updated one that I'm not sure if it got up there, so I apologize. I thought this would need to perhaps be updated, but 1 is not comfortable, 5 is very comfortable. Okay, so I did revise that, but perhaps it didn't get up into board docs, and I apologize for that. So just to give you an idea, so in this instance, we see that about 47.6% of staff respondents gave that a 1 or a 2, and 31.1% gave that a 4 or a 5, with 3, representing about 20%, 21% of the overall responses. Okay, can you go to the next slide, Marion? Okay, this gives you a breakdown by school of that question. 1, once again, being not comfortable, 5 being very comfortable. The number on the left indicates the raw number out of that 58, say, from OTES, and then the number in parentheses represents the percentage of that, right? So, for example, at Dow Avenue, 53% gave it a 1 and a 2, 22% gave it a 4 or 5, 24% in the middle. And you see for each school how that falls out. Then you see the average score, 1 through 5, with the range of 2.44 out of 5 up to 3.06. Obviously, anything above a 3 is going to skew more comfortable. Anything below a 3 is going to skew not as comfortable. Okay. All right. Next slide, Marion.
Well, I wanted to, before you do that. I
Yep,
just
go
wanna-
ahead.
So when you see the TOIS, right, their participation in the survey is significant, right?
TOIS, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Well, remember, they have a larger staff.
Mhm.
So
So
many of these schools, in
percent-
relation to their staff, is
I guess what I
pretty,
was asking percent-wise, do you know what percent of the participation there was?
it's pretty consistent.
Okay, that's
I
good
didn't
enough.
do it of the staff, but I mean, it is
It's
pretty
fairly consistent.
relative to
Okay.
the staff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, I mean, if you look at, there's a slide that speaks to what percentage of the respondents.
Mhm.
I mean, I would say Dow is, like Wanamass that's pretty good. Dow maybe is a little lighter. But overall, it's pretty consistent.
Okay.
Yep.
Jim, because it's such a high percentage of 1, the number 1,
Uh-huh.
feeling uncomfortable, what are we doing to reassure the staff? My question specifically, were those temperature machines that we are using recalibrated and checked perhaps after the winter break? Is there extra cleaning going on with the numbers going up? Is there something we can do to make the staff feel a little bit more reassured about what we're doing to keep them safe?
Well, I to my knowledge, we did not recalibrate the machines. We weren't necessarily, given that direction that we would need to necessarily do that. Cleaning, I mean, Ken can speak to the cleaning procedures, but I would say it's just the normal cleaning procedures that we followed. I mean, I think what would work to reassure staff is things that we've talked about. The fact that, the procedures that we have followed have been effective in limiting the amount of transmission and exposure that has occurred within our school. The overwhelming majority of cases that we've reported on, I want to say, what did I put out today? 11. So I think that's about 114, I think now that we've reported on. The overwhelming number of those have been outside of school. Those that have been in school have resulted in one known case that we know of that is likely to have resulted from a close contact in school of all of those cases. Could there be more? Maybe. It's possible. But what we can more definitively point to is one case that there's strong evidence to support. I think that speaks to the procedures that are in place, the masks that are being worn, the distances. I mean, and look, to maintain 6 feet all day long in every situation with students is very difficult. But kids are working hard to do that. Teachers are working hard to do that. The cleaning that's been in place, the air filters that we've put in place, all of the things that we have done, the countless things that we've talked about over and over again at a board meeting, I think have led us to a place where we have as safe an environment that you can have in the middle of a pandemic, right? And there's no guarantees, but I think a great predictor of future behaviors is past behaviors, right? And so the fact that we've had a lot of community spread going on and we can only point to that one known case in district case, in school, I think says a lot. Now, but we have to continue to be vigilant and we have to continue to do the things that we have been doing and perhaps even get better at the things that we've been doing in terms of keeping kids home when they're not feeling well, parents doing the right thing at home in terms of keeping their kids home. If you're waiting on, if someone in your house is waiting on a COVID test, keep your kids home, things like that. It's really, really important. I said it in my letter the other day. It's very important. We stayed home last week to allow for that time after the holidays to kind of flush out what we would see from holidays. That was the purpose of it. We're 10 days beyond that time. So the majority of people who are going to be symptomatic will have presented themselves from the holidays, right? So I think that was a good thing that we were home last week.
Mhm.
But now we come back and if we follow the procedures that we have put in place, then hopefully we can stay in school. That's the goal.
Jim, I'm sorry for asking the
Go ahead.
questions, but I should have let you just go through the presentation and we could go back. I'm sorry for.
That's
interrupting.
okay. I'm used to you butting in, Jeff, so it's all right. It's fine.
Well, while we're on it, actually, can I ask Ms. Gilman's point, are there items, other than altering the number of days or the hours that we're in school, are there things that the staff has asked for that we haven't been able to accommodate?
Well, I mean, I think, you mean in school?
In school.
In school, not to my knowledge. I mean, if people have come to us with requests for accommodations within their rooms, we may not have been able to do everything that was reasonable, but we've done a lot. Once again, Ken can speak perhaps to the physical plant side of things, but, we've really worked to accommodate people as much as we possibly can. But it's difficult because, you are in the middle of a pandemic and you are watching, potential post-holiday surges and you are looking at Monmouth County.
Just to Ms. Fuller's point, is there anything that's outstanding that we had on the list? Plexiglass covers, or any shields or anything that we were supposed to get?
I mean, PPE, we have
Okay, so
significant
no
amount of
open
PPE. We have, everything people have asked for the most part, as long as it's been
Okay,
reasonable, we've been able to supply it.
okay, all right.
Thank you.
All right. So next question, when do you believe the district should increase in-person opportunities for students? What we see here is I think interesting. And when we get to the parent responses, you'll see some differences. But interestingly, we kind of get to a similar place. So fewer staff, 18% said most immediately, yesterday. A few more, a lesser percentage said by next week. But almost a third of our staff respondents said that by around the beginning of the next semester, that perhaps we could start looking at an increase in how we have students in the building. But when you add so follow me here. If you're comfortable with it on January 11th, you're obviously comfortable with it on February 1st. And the 19th, you're obviously comfortable with it. So when you add those three together, 60.9% of our staff say by February 1st, this is perhaps something we could start looking at.
Mhm.
And obviously, we got to see what's going on health-wise. But one of the things that we've been talking about in our task force meetings and others is, what is we got to start to give people an idea of moving forward. What is the plan moving forward? So we'll, as we get to the end, we'll kind of get to that. But I think, February 1st is at least tentatively starting to look at a time that we might be able to start looking at some things and seeing how we can adjust what we currently have going on.
Okay.
Okay?
Mhm.
Next slide is going to break that down by school. And there's quite a spread by school. So it ranges from 50% at Dow Avenue by February 1st up to 77% at Wayside by February 1st, and all in between. The high secondary was right around 56, 57%, Guatemala 68% by February 1st. It's looking more like the vaccine rollout will be, is going to be slower than we were all hoping to be. Staff members, educators fall in the 1B category. Right now we're still in 1A. I think there was hope that by February 1st, the 1B timeframe would begin. I'm not sure that we're going to follow that, be able to, that's going to play out. So we'll see how that goes. But educators are in the second tier of individuals who are slated to be vaccinated.
I think they might. The last that I heard today.
I hope so.
Hoping to
I hope
ramp
so.
that up and make it a little
That would be
faster.
good. There are some people who fall under our district that fall under A1. That's our nurses, our athletic trainers. They are A1. So many of them hopefully will be either some have already been and are waiting now on shot 2, and some are to be shortly vaccinated the first go around. Okay. Okay. When in district would you prefer? Okay. When all remote. So we've kind of already addressed this one. Wait a minute. Where are we? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. I didn't print this one out. Yeah, I really apologize. I made some adjustments today to define what these things are, and I this one version didn't get up on Board Docs, and I apologize. I can get it up when we post this on the website tomorrow. I'll have that other edition up, and I apologize for that. So this gives you an idea of what people could respond. Check all that apply. They could apply different things. So the second one down is grades 6 to 8, coming back at least 4 or 5 days, 4+ days. The one in the middle is 9 through 12, 4 or 5 days. And then the one second from the bottom is increasing our special education and ELL students to 5 days per week.
Jim,
So-
can I ask a question on this?
You sure can.
Have we looked at, because I know like there's a lot of different kinds of responses here, but have we looked at the people that have said, like, for example, special ed and ELL to 5 days?
Yeah.
Are the people that mostly want the 5 days special ed and ELL teachers? Because I would think just like the pre-K, for example, like, if I'm a 5th grade teacher, I may not care if pre-K goes back, but if I'm a pre-K teacher, I care about that. So do we, have we looked at it that deep?
No, because we make we don't know necessarily where, we don't make that a required question. Like
Then
where
you're-
someone is, who they are on the staff survey. It's not a required question.
Because that would be interesting if that was something to act on. That would be an interesting thing. Sorry, Kelly, were you about to say something?
I think Alex.
No, sorry, that was me. You can't really assess questions like this if you're not doing what Amy is saying. Because why should we even take into account what a high school or parent or teacher says about a pre-K question? So we really need to break down.
Well,
my
once
opinion.
again, we're not, it's important for staff for these questions to be anonymous. That's been brought up here a number of times. So,
But there's a way you can do, but then we're using perhaps an incorrect survey tool or something. Because there's ways you can do it where you can say, if you're a high school teacher, then you proceed to these.
Well, we wouldn't,
Question.
any particular question that would be, say, for pre-K, we don't make that a mandatory question. So if a person is a high school teacher and it's a specific pre-K question, they wouldn't have to answer it.
I guarantee you in this one they did though. I mean,
Well, I
there's no
mean,
way there wasn't overlap in this. And so like,
well, they can, they certainly, I guess, a staff member could provide their response. I mean, I think what you get out of this is that I think there's something very clear that comes out of this response, which is, at least for right now, the January 11th time, that we should keep things pretty status quo. I mean, that seems to come out across the board fairly clear with these responses. 63% of the respondents, said that. So, okay. All right, next one, Marion, please. Okay, so this was the question we kind of addressed, right before break ended. Since we were all remote, we wanted to address this question. So when the district is all remote, and this has been a question for a number of months, when we're all remote, I've gotten feedback that it's very difficult for us, particularly our younger students, to be remote, be online all day, be remote all day. I've gotten other feedback as well. So we asked that question. So about over 80% of staff responded that they would like some type of either early dismissal or late arrival schedule compared to a full day schedule. If you go to the next slide, Marianne. See the breakdown by school. So it ranges from 77% at the high school to 88% at Bell Avenue. Elementaries were more than the secondary. I think that kind of that's supported by some of the elementary feedback that I've heard from parents at the elementary level. Next slide. Okay. So then, of course, the other big question is, when it snows, what do we want to do? We actually did have a little snow event a couple weeks ago, which is very interesting. If you're on the east side of 35, you were looking at grass the next morning, and when you're on the west side of 35, you had a few inches of snow to deal with. This one, it's going to be interesting here how close the staff and parents were on this one. So about just shy of 55% of our staff wanted some form of instructional day happen. Primarily a shortened day, but some form of day, compared to 45% who said, let's have that traditional snow day. If you break it down if you go to the next slide, Marianne, you'll see that, break it down by school. You see that it ranged above 50% for all the schools except the high school. The high school very much wanted a snow day. But all three elementaries and the intermediate were above 55%. 55% or above on that. Okay. All right. Okay, parent responses. We had really good response. 2,100 from the English speaking survey, 81, thank you, from the Spanish survey. So very, close to 2,200 responses overall. So if you want to go forward, Marianne. Okay, so you see the breakdown there percentage-wise. It's about slightly over 600 for the high school and the middle school. 274 for Wanamasa, 259 Dow, 417 for Wayside. And that'll come up in later slides.
Can I just ask a
Yeah.
question before we move on?
Sure.
Just looking at, if we have that information, you can't track a respondent, so you don't know who it is, but you can track if somebody responded that they're from Wayside through the survey, right?
Yep.
So if a teacher responded they were from one of those, you can track their responses through the survey. So in theory, you could discount a Wayside teacher's response to high school or a high
Yeah,
school
you could,
teacher's
right, you could go
response to
into the
pre-K.
Excel spreadsheet
Right.
that you can generate but you'd have to do it one by one.
One by
Yes, you could do it,
Yeah.
but, you know,
So it's doable. So you could
It's
go
doable,
back and
yes,
unravel it. It might
you
not
could.
get to the level where you want to present it publicly because that could get a lot more complicated, but it
Right.
could in the decision making.
Yeah.
Be unraveled.
It is possible, yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. This is the Spanish responses. 81, and and realizing too that obviously with 81 responses, it's not a large pool compared to the 2100.
Did we include the 81 in 2100?
When I do the school breakouts, I include the 81 in the others.
Okay, I don't know if it's that clear, and they probably should be in every question.
I'm sorry.
I don't think it's that clear because the
Well,
80.
total.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide. We had pretty good distribution of the grade levels across the board. Some more than others, but overall within a pretty good range. Keep going. Once again, you're going to see a greater variability with the Spanish 81 responses than with the others, but not bad. Okay, so 80% of the respondents are in this particular survey were people who are utilizing the in-person hybrid model. 20% virtual, which is about the district-wide average. So that about made sense. Keep going. A little bit more percentage of in the 81 for all remote. Keep going. Okay, so we go to the questions. So this is the same question, just on the parent side of how comfortable are you with returning. And obviously you see a little bit of a difference here. Parents, 50, just about 56%, just shy of that, 4s and 5s. Just shy of 30% 1s and 2s, with 14% in the middle. So parents overall in a answering that they're more comfortable overall than the staff, which makes sense. I mean, that's not unexpected. Next slide. With the Spanish-speaking parent survey, a little bit more of a bell curve. But 37% 4s and 5s, 28.4% 1s and 2s, almost 35% in the middle. Next slide.
Is there a reason why you don't put those two together? I mean,
Yeah, because on this, what do you mean? In one survey, you mean, or?
No, on one slide.
On one
well, to
slide?
put the aggregate numbers together.
I do in the breakdown.
Are you doing the breakdown?
Yeah, but I do it by school. I put the numbers together, so you can total them up. So when you do the school breakdown, that's everybody combined. Okay, so you get an idea of where everybody falls. I think the best way to look at this once again is through the average score, and so you get a sense of where the high school being the least comfortable of the 5, with Wanamasa, Wayside being the most.
But we still don't know what the percentage of parents of these schools actually answered. Like the 259 at OTES could be, for all I know, 100% of parents, or it could be 20% of parents who answered, correct?
It's 259 of the population of the school. So if there's 380 kids, that's the percentage.
I realize you're telling me that, but you don't see the percentages, so it's difficult to assess how engaged the parents are in this survey from that percentage point.
Alex, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Can you repeat your question?
If there's 300 parents, 300 kids at OTES, and 1,200 kids at TOIS, so that's 2,400 parents potentially could have answered this on a good day for TOIS, for example, and now we're showing 627 answered. So what percentage of 627 of the 2,400, like what is our engagement of parents per school? Because I think you'll see
But
some differences.
It's actually valid to extrapolate that, right? You're probably less than a standard deviation away from extrapolating that is a fair representation.
Yeah, and maybe they're all equal. It would be nice
I mean,
if they were all equal and like every school answered the same amount.
Yeah. I mean, statistically, though, the pool of having 200 or 150 statistically is a big enough sample to be able to extrapolate that the rest of the
Oh,
community.
Sure, that's,
absolutely
and that's a good point.
I think that's.
Is it
probably-
20%? So then that's a good number. Is it 60% is a good pool? I don't know.
Oh, I think,
I mean
I
to
mean,
distract.
if you're getting 60% response, that's, I think you, well,
Yeah.
and here's another very, I think, and this is what we see in every survey we've done since the summer, that where the responses are at about 500 responses are where they are 2,000 responses.
Yeah.
Give or take.
1,000%. that's
Within a
awesome.
couple of
So
percentage
close
points.
Okay, that's good. to
So
know.
for all those folks who say, this is online, this is anybody can answer it, well, it's proving that
Yeah.
it's very consistent how
Mhm.
people, how people respond. Okay, so gives you an idea of where they are by school. Next slide. Okay, so we go back to that original question of when should we start increasing? Parents, following along with lines with their comfort, far more like, let's go. But what we looked at once again is, let's take a look at those first three categories. Let's look at the February 1st number, because obviously January 11th was not necessarily realistic. But so could we look at all three? So where staff was around 60% by February 1st, the parents are coming in closer to 70%. So that's not crazy far off between the two. I think that's very good, information to have to take a look at. Next slide. Spanish version, a little bit less right away, but once again, we get to, that's closer to 60% by February 1st. Next slide. Okay, here's the breakdown by school. So you have an idea that, once again, all schools were 60% or higher, ranging from 60% at the high school to 79% at Wayside. And that's by the February 1st. By the February 1st. Okay, and then similarly, you get an idea of folks where they're responding there. Okay. Next slide. Okay, back to when we're remote, I would prefer. So this one was pretty, a lot more evenly split between, as far as compared to the staff. But still, the majority of parents did say that they preferred some type of either early dismissal or late arrival schedule compared to a full day. It was, slight difference, but, percentage, majority percentage nonetheless. Go to the next slide. Interestingly, and the Spanish-speaking parents was not that way. Far more of the respondents said full day, but the overall, with the fewer respondents, it didn't sway it back to the other side. It's still slightly, majority of some form of shortened day. Next slide, Marion.
I'm sorry, can I just ask a question?
Sure can.
So,
Yep.
When you show the parent slide,
Mhm.
that is not all, that's just the English survey? Or is that inclusive of the Spanish, and then you show the Spanish breakout separately?
No,
Okay.
they're two different surveys.
That's what.
And then when we pull it,
Yeah.
then the school breakdowns bring it together.
Okay.
The school breakdowns bring it together. Okay.
Yeah, I misunderstood what you're asking for. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So
that's
thank
okay. I'm sorry. Okay, so you see the school breakdowns.
I think in the future, well, hopefully we're not kind of in this perpetual cycle of surveying,
Yeah.
but it might be helpful to just show all parents,
Mhm.
right?
Right,
And then
yes.
have just the subset of how the varied language surveys go.
Okay, I take, and I'll have to see how I do that. I take screenshots of the surveys and
Right.
put them in, and that's, I don't
Yeah.
recreate it. So, perhaps, yeah, we can, let's see.
And
how
like,
we do
again,
that.
hopefully
subsets.
Yeah,
You know,
right. I got you.
unless could we ever do subsets like what the subsets are on our makeup, like, you know, SPED students, Latino, Black students, what's the other one? Economically disadvantaged and disabled.
We would have to ask people to identify themselves as
Well,
economically
yeah.
disadvantaged.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to your point, it's like, why are we even looking
Yeah.
at the
Well,
Latino
I
ones
mean,
if
I think,
we're not
you know,
doing
what
all?
we tend to find is that it's pretty consistent. Like I said, when we have, I mean, obviously within 2,100 students or 2,100 responses, you're going to get, you know, hopefully, and I don't know that it's going to be exactly
Yeah.
represented.
But I think because the goal of providing the survey in another language is so it's accessible.
Mhm.
It shouldn't, I don't know why we're grouping that group of parents separately and how we're reporting the data, right? I think it's just so that that group of parents are able to be fully accessible to the survey and be able to respond. But
Sure.
I don't know why we're not just baking it into the overall response results. 'Cause
Well,
I don't know that we should be
Agreed.
looking at or deciding differently,
Yeah.
you know, based on one or the other.
Well,
It's
that-
just to make it accessible, not
Sure.
so that we necessarily see the difference.
Well, I
Because we could
think,
then break it up to, you know, how did
Right.
the women respond versus men, or this or that, like, you know.
Right. I think feedback I've received in the past is that we want to see the actual survey result. So that's why as
I know,
compared
but they
to,
get the same survey, it's just
Correct.
asked in a different language.
Right.
Right, it would be no different if someone was visually impaired and someone read it to them, we wouldn't then report that out differently, right?
Correct.
So
but what I'm
that's,
saying is that people want to see, when they see the result, they want to see the result as it appeared in the survey. So
Mhm.
that's why I screenshot it and say, here's the result.
right.
And then when
But
I
that
do,
would still be the result, it's
Right.
just translated.
Right.
And then aggregated.
right. But when I do the school breakdown, I do
Yeah,
bring it
no, I
together.
know, but I think on the pie chart too, then when you show the Spanish language response, I'm trying to remember what the one right before it said, right?
Okay.
See if
Well,
there's
what
a
I can-
discrepancy in the trivial
Okay.
pursuit.
Well, as you said, maybe we.
Well, the real problem is that the pie chart quickly gives you the look of how things are leveled out.
Uh-huh.
When you start doing the breakdown thing, I feel like a human typewriter. I'm going
Right.
like this, going like that, you know, I'm going back
Yeah.
and forth. So
Yeah.
I think that's what's going on here.
All right,
We'll
so.
have the survey perfected by the time.
Yes,
it's done.
by 2024, we will perfect the survey. All right. Okay, so remote day schedule, we see how the breakdown is as far as the schools. You know, very interesting here, I thought, you know, both Dow Avenue and Wanamassa were over in the low 60% with parents saying, you know, some form of early dismissal or late arrival. Wayside was the black sheep of the elementaries with just 51%. And then the middle school and the high school were, you know, the majority actually were full day. But it was, you know, it wasn't a significant majority, but it was still a majority. So it was different. And that's what led us to sort of come to that compromise, some full, some partial, you know, solution that we did have for last week. So give you an idea. Next question. Okay, we should just go through these. It's their pie charts. I'm joking. So you get a sense here with the parents that about 58% in the English-speaking survey said that they felt some form of day was appropriate as compared to the snow day. Do the next slide. This one even more so. It's about 70% of parents overall felt that in the Spanish-speaking survey. And then when you do the school breakdown, you see that every school felt you do the next slide, Marion. Every school was in the majority from 53% at Wanamassa up to 62% at the high school. So, you know, both parents and staff from all except for one school for staff felt that some form of day when it snowed was the direction they preferred to go. Next, we asked questions about how people preferred to get their correspondence. So we see that email was a very strong response. Text messages, also very strong response. Phone calls next. Last social media and the website. But still, a good amount of people, but less compared to that. And then in the Spanish-speaking survey, similar, where the majority of the respondents were email. And once again, text, very interesting. It pretty much worked out the exact same percentage. So.
Jim, will we be looking into a text alert system, or have we looked into?
Yeah, we are. I mean, what it's being utilized on individual bases within like some of the principals, some of the school-wide, use Remind and use text messaging. I think Kelly Weldon just gave me a number the other day that when you add all of it combined, there's been over, Kelly, chime in and correct me, somewhere like 1 million.
Yeah, 1.7 million messages were sent this school year by 230 users in our district using free accounts.
So using the free account. So we are, that tells us a lot. And we don't have a district sort of account. We have the capability, we just haven't utilized that yet. So we are definitely moving in that direction.
Okay, thank you.
And then it's okay. So what does all this mean, and where does this leave us? All right. So I think the three things that really, that come out of this is that, one thing that we've already done that we put in place last week is that when the district is all remote, that we're going to run the schedule that we ran last week. That we are now tentatively looking and tentatively making plans around the idea of January 29th, which is the start of the second semester at the high school. It's a Friday. So, for sequential people like me who like things to start on Mondays, February 1st potentially for the other schools, that we're looking at some form of increased opportunities for kids. That may, particularly at the secondary level, require, if we're going to start bringing in more kids, it may require some adjustment to the schedule, because lunch does become an issue when, say, 800 kids are in the school compared to now when you have, half the school. So that's going to be looked at very closely, and within the next couple of weeks, we'll have more information about that. And I say tentative because obviously we're going to allow what's going on in the world of health to help us make these decisions, obviously. And so if the health conditions are such that it doesn't make sense to do some of this, then obviously we would follow that. But if we think it's important to start looking at and providing a timeline for parents so that they at least have an idea when some of these things might start to happen. All right. And then, with everybody feeling that way, it seems pretty secure that unless there is a situation where we're dealing with widespread power outages, which becomes the new problematic inclement weather situation, that we would look to have probably an early dismissal schedule when the weather is inclement, and get the day in, hopefully giving enough time for everybody to get out, play in the snow, and shovel the driveways and do whatever they need to do. So,
Can you just clarify so that make sure that everyone's clear when you say the new schedule in district is all remote? So that would be when the entire district, not an individual school.
correct.
So if an individual school for some reason needs to go all remote,
We would look to follow the schedule, the full day.
the full day,
Yeah.
right? So just so that everyone is
Yeah.
clear on that.
This is really meant for those longer term, all district kinds of things. Shorter term, one school.
And that follows the Monday, Tuesday,
Right.
full, Wednesday, traditional half, Thursday, Friday, half.
Correct.
But only when the entire district goes remote,
Correct.
not an individual school.
Can I ask a question?
Mr. Monk,
And then I have a
So,
question.
and then Ms. Beal.
so Jim, the way the calendar works, we have a meeting on the 18th, and we don't have a meeting on the 25th, which means that the following night. So will you have by next meeting, what the plan will be and how to deal with cafeterias and buses and all that
think
stuff?
We hope to be, right now, I think the biggest Ms. Kasuba has already met with our pandemic response team and has kind of outlined some possibilities. I think Mr. Amato's was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, as well, and I think he was just starting to discuss some of the possibilities. So there's a lot of factors like transportation, food
buses and,
distribution, there's
yeah.
a lot of factors. So we do believe that by next week, we'll have a pretty good idea of what we'd like to do on the 1st, with, probably still a few logistical things that might have to be worked out. But,
Okay,
and then we don't meet with the task force again until not this Thursday, but the following. So we'll want to discuss with task force as well. And then, we hope to be ready potentially, once again, as long as the health conditions allow,
Mhm.
for around that February 1st.
Yeah, so a couple of questions.
Yep.
And some of them because I don't want to make assumptions. Does the high school have a pandemic response team, I guess similar to the?
Yes,
intermediate
every
school?
school has a pandemic response.
Okay. How often does that task force meet? Are there parent representatives on that task force?
Yes, Dawn, how often do you meet? Are you on here? Can you answer that?
Yeah, I would say we've met at least once a month, and sometimes depending on what's going on, more often. Like earlier, we met more often as we were coming in. This time we met in December, and then we just met again the first week when we came back. So at least once a month, but typically, especially when it's a busy time, more than that. And yes, there are 2 parents on that committee.
Okay, then my other question is, with the possible increase for student attendance, is there a concern regarding substitutes? Because when I look at, if I'm understanding this correctly, for the staff, 63.1% want to keep things as are, no need to increase. So has there been discussions yet around, and I know that this is staff for the entire district, but especially with the high school, has there been a plan addressed for continuity of instruction for the students, just to ensure that the students are returning to school, not returning to a school building?
Well, I want to try to understand. I mean, obviously, the overwhelming majority of our staff is in and working with our students. We do have some people who are out on leave, and as we do every year, some of those are COVID related, some of those are not. We have maternity leaves, we have a variety of different leaves. We have substitutes in every situation. That doesn't mean on any given day, we could have coverage issues that may happen. So, I mean, yes,
well,
I think
Jim,
Nicole
you're
is
big.
asking, given the number of staff who would like it to be longer till we return or increase, if that number goes up then as a result of bringing the students back on February 1st, right? That those numbers might jump as a result.
Yeah, I
think
mean,
is what Michelle's asking.
it's possible. I mean, I will say that, like as we said all year, it's not like our substitute pool is great. So, I mean, obviously, the more people who are out, the more challenges that presents. I mean, right now, under normal circumstances, we're, as good as we can be. If we bring back more people in February and, 20 people decide that they're not going to come, they have to take a leave or whatever. Yeah, I mean, that's going to, it might depend on where that is, and, because secondary is a little more challenging than elementary.
Yeah.
Certainly, but, we, on the pandemic response teams, are staff members, and they're part of these conversations, and they're, the half of our task force is staff members, and so, I mean, obviously staff are part of this conversation. We want to make sure that, it's going to be hard to be 100% on anything here, but we want to try to make sure whatever decisions we make, the most people feel as comfortable as they possibly can.
Ms. Conway, you can end the share screen. I think we're done with the presentation, so that way people can see again.
Sure.
Ms. Tortorella?
I just have a comment, observation. So if we're going to continue to survey parents and staff for maybe for different things, even after this is over, I'd like to see us get to the point where we remove the neutral option. We really should be surveying on a 1, 2, 3, 4 scale, not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Just to avoid some of the questions, there were 20, 30% in that neutral, and I just think it might help you guys make, it's kind of forcing people to choose yes or no, plus or minus.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Since we are able to extrapolate category grade, what school is the parent home, this is actually why I asked.
Alex, can you speak up? Because I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Since we are able to extrapolate the categories of the grades, I would be curious to find out what pre-K through grade 2 in terms of half day when we're full remote, how those parents would respond. I mean, I'm a parent of a 3rd grader, and it seems a lot of 3rd and 4th graders that I've talked to don't love the idea of a half day for day. So and this data is just pre-K through 5. So I mean, 5th graders can be left home. The 3rd and 4th graders can be left pre-K through 2. If we can extract from the data and we find that 91% of pre-K through 2 love the half day, but 91% of 3 and 4 and 5 hate it, like, would we ever change our stance on what when we're fully remote? Because I just, to me, it's apples and oranges what a pre-K parent might want.
Right. It's having multiple schedule. I mean, we're all remote, so obviously things like transportation don't come into play. But there are some equity issues that come into play when you're doing different things. They come into play when you're doing different things within the district, and they particularly come into play when you're doing different things within a particular level. So is it possible? Yes. Is it always feasible? Not necessarily, not really, not always. But I can certainly do that culling of the data in that way. We can pull out, pre-K to 2. It'll take me a little bit, but we can do that. Yes.
Ms. McGovern or Ms. Tallarico, any questions? Ms. Tallarico.
Just a quick question. A few meetings back, I had asked about a survey specifically geared towards the special ed population. I was just wondering if that's been done, and if not, is there any plan to do this?
Not yet. We haven't done that. We don't have a plan right now to do that, but we can certainly talk with Ms. Zona and Ms. Green, or our SEPTA president, does sit on our task force. So obviously the special ed voice is being heard. But I can talk with her and the Zona to see if there's a need. Sure.
I did want to just bring up that it seems that parents are not able to tell the help desk tonight that they have a question for public comment later on. The help desk chat is disabled. I don't know if they can enable it.
Ms. Conway, do you have people in your queue?
We're having actually a problem with chat right now. We're trying to correct it. So people probably have not been able to find the chat option. And we're thinking that we could use the raising hand option that I think that they would have. And then I could announce them and unmute them.
That works. Thank you.
So
any other, so we'll get to that at the appropriate time. Thank you. Any other board members on this survey?
No, but I just want to reiterate, Alex, I don't know what it is, but the mic might have to come closer to you because you're straining to hear.
Wireless, so
I agree. I can't hear in this room.
Okay.
that's the bottom. That's the bottom.
Tim, is there a student survey that's being done?
The high school did a student survey.
They're in the process of doing?
No, they put
did?
it out. Dawn put out a student survey last week. So she's in the process of getting some of that information
So
back.
we should hear about that in the next week or so?
Yeah.
Be interesting to hear their.
The high school did a student survey.
Is there any way we could get a copy of that as the board? Because I heard there was a question about SEL and I was just interested for the wellness committee.
Yeah, I'm sure we can get a copy of that for you. Or if we, or, you know, we can certainly provide it to the wellness committee. That's fine. Or, you know, if the board would like to see it.
Any other questions on the survey from the board?
And, you know, if there, I'm sorry.
No?
Okay. Just to say too, like, you know, obviously with any survey, it's a snapshot in a moment of when someone's answering a question. You know, it helps guide us, but it doesn't necessarily always make the decision for us. I mean, there's so many different factors that come into play, but it does help us get a sense of what people are feeling on a particular issue at a particular time, right? So we always just have to keep that in mind. But it's good. It's good to get the information. It's good to get the data and use it to try to what's going to provide for the best situation in a often impossible situation to address. So just, you know, always keep that in mind.
Thank you. Anything
Thank
else
you.
for your superintendent's report?
Oh, haven't I done enough at this point?
Moving on. So we will move on to Mr. John Roan and the School Business Administrator's report.
Okay, just a few things. The board, we had some snail mail that came in over break that, for the members that are present, they received a few pieces of mail. And then also there's the annual Board of Ed pamphlet that we do every year, of course. So that's at your place. So that's a couple of housekeeping items. An update on our audit that was delayed. Well, all audits throughout the state have been delayed. This is the independent audit that is performed every year on the school district and in every school district. So we're coming close to wrapping up, or the independent auditors are coming close to wrapping up. And it looks like February 2nd that they'll be attending the workshop meeting for the board to give a report to the board. So I wanted to let you know that. And then also our budget process is full steam ahead. And before break, we met with every supervisor. And currently we're meeting with each principal and department heads. So we're going through each budget. And then we will start the process with the board also on February 2nd, reviewing budget. So just wanted to give you an update on audit and the budget. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Mr. John Roan.
Can I have a question about the workshops for board members? Do we need to register with you? Are they up and available yet? The required?
Okay, so they're always two different things. If you go on school boards and you get emails from school boards and new board members, you should, now that we've submitted your email address, you should be getting them shortly if you're not already. So there's mandated workshops that the mandated parts that you have to do, whichever year. The first year you have your orientation and those requirements. But then there are also a host of other workshops that you can always attend. What I would ask is, in some of them, they make it mandatory that you have to, that the school business administrator has to register a board member for those workshops. Please, communicate with me, let me know, I can sign you up. I keep track. And then the process of the board in the past has been, when someone goes to something, and I know you've attended some in the past, Irene, and then you would report back to the board after. So then I would let the board president know that you're attending something, and then that would go on our tickler list for the next agenda, and then you would do a report back to the board. So the new, I will double check, but I know the online courses, I believe, are out. But let me double check for you, and I'll let everyone know next workshop meeting.
Thank you.
And actually, just going back to Dr. Spinkus, I neglected to ask you a question. Could you just give a quick 2-second overview of what the governor and the DOE's announcements related to assessments, et cetera, impact they would have on the district if any?
Well, it's hard to do that because we haven't
There's
gotten the
DOE
guidance from the
guidance, sure.
DOE yet. Typically, the governor makes an announcement and then, there were three
Devil in the
parts,
details.
and then we get the, the devil in the details memo, that tells us what it all means. In essence, three parts, at least of what I saw from the governor's announcement was one, that for the class of 2021, this current senior class, the governor is, they're waiving, the Department of Education, they're waiving the test assessment requirement. That really doesn't have a significant impact on us as the overwhelming majority of our students had already completed that requirement. And the last step in it for those who didn't is a portfolio process that our students have already done. And so it has to be, now it won't have to be submitted because it doesn't matter, but they've already done it. It would have been really nice to hear this in September because we do pull the students out of an elective to take this portfolio class. So that would have been nice for the kids. But the good news is that, this will mean that there's no standardized test requirement. All of the other requirements, graduation requirements, are still in place. And most of those are local Board of Education requirements that are in line with state law, like 3 years of math, 3 years of science, and so forth. The other deals with student growth objectives, which is a teacher evaluation issue. Part of every teacher evaluation is something called an SGO, or student growth objective, which are locally developed objectives. And so the governor is, and once again, I really like to see the details on that, which we haven't yet, but basically that they will not be considered as part of this year's final evaluation for teachers. And then the third part deals with extending some of the days. There are certain laws that limit the amount of days a particular certified person could act as a substitute in a classroom. Those days have been extended, which is a good thing. Those are the three sort of basic principles that have come out. Next week, I'll be able to give you more detail if there's more detail to give, but that's basically where it is.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Fuller, excuse me 1 second. I just wanted back to what Mr. Janner and Ms. Gilman were talking about. I was able to go on the school board's website. There are classes up, and it looks like the first governance classes aren't until the first week in February. But there are other classes that are currently being held. So you can see them on the website.
Thank you, Ms. McGovern. All right, anything else for Mr. Janner or Dr. Spankowitz? All right, so we'll move on to public comment. All motions are posted on the bulletin board, the district website. At this point in the meeting, we will now conduct the first of 2 public comment sessions. The first session will be open for public comments on agenda items only. The second session will be at the end of the meeting and can be on any topic. Would anyone from the public like to comment on any agenda item at this time? And again, please use the raise hand function, which is found under reactions on the Zoom screen. So please indicate raise hand and we will call on you accordingly. Ms. Conway.
The first public comment is from Melinda Willems.
Thank you. And please just remember to state your name and address prior to asking your question or making your comment. Thank you.
Hi, Melinda Willems, Deal Road in Wayside. Just a comment. I know I and many others had a very different interpretation of the question about increasing in-person what other question? I don't remember how it was worded, but at the time we answered the question, we are fully remote. So many interpreted that question as getting kids back into school from being fully remote. So it said increase in-person student time. So many people thought January 11th was a very good time to leave all remote learning and go back. And certainly for no reason would we not want to be back by February 1st from going out in December. So I think that question in the way it was worded and the time that we answered it, which was over when we were home over break, we thought it meant coming back from, getting back into the building after going on all remote in December. I'm not saying everybody, but dozens and dozens of people interpreted it that way.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Conway, anyone else for public comment?
I do not see anybody else. Let me take.
Lori Walgren, Lori Ann Walgren.
Oh, okay.
So if you could unmute Ms. Walgren, please.
Yes, go right ahead, Lorianne.
Hi, Dr. Spankwitz, I have a question that someone sent to me. They're asking about the updated, you mentioned that this was not the most updated survey, that there were, when you presented the survey, you said that it was not updated. Are there different numbers available?
No, I'm sorry, Lorianne. What I meant by that is I just did a couple cosmetic things in the survey to under the 1, I put not comfortable, and under 5, I put very comfortable, just some cosmetic things.
Okay.
No updates of the numbers.
In terms of numbers. Okay, that's the question that.
No, the numbers that we presented were correct. It was
Okay, and
just some cosmetic things.
I'm sorry, I forgot in the beginning to identify myself. I apologize. Lorianne Walgren, I teach at Wanamassa. I live in Wall Township, and I'm asking this now as TOEA Vice President. So, so that clarifies that. Thank you. And then there was also a question someone sent to me asking, bear with me for a moment here, that they are wondering what is the difference between the percentage of staff members who have indicated a relatively high level of discomfort in terms of being in the buildings with the students, as opposed to the last time that question was asked of staff members. Do you have that, a comparison of whether or not that the level of discomfort has increased or decreased over this?
We did not ask that question this time around, so I don't know.
Well, we did ask it this time, the level of, how comfortable you are.
We asked your comfort in returning on the 11th.
Okay, and I guess.
So it's slightly different.
Right, so I think, again, this is the question of, I guess this is an issue with any survey, how questions are interpreted. So staff members, I think, may have interpreted that as a question of level of comfort.
Yeah, I mean, they're similar questions. They're similar, but I mean, they're a little different, but they're not the exact question. But yeah, I mean, that's unfortunately with any survey, you put it together, people look at it and then you send it out, and it's hard to know how people are going to take, to Melinda's point, well, what she said, I see that. I see what, I see her point, but that's not, we didn't think of it that way when we made the survey. So it's hard to know exactly how somebody's going to interpret a question, once it goes out.
Okay, I think that what's being indicated to me is that there is a relatively high level of concern amongst many staff members across the district. So, that, and I think that the numbers of staff members who have not been in, speaks to that as well. So that is something that I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Yeah, I think that one question definitely speaks to how comfortable people felt with returning on January 11th. Sure.
And again, I do think that perhaps people interpret it as just not only returning on that date, but in being back in school at this time with the levels of COVID so high in our community and our county. So I think that's important to recognize.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, we take a look at it. I mean, there's 53 districts in the county, and as of, I think today, 48 of those districts are either returned last week or this week, 90%. some, I know of at least two who are, who might be going out now because of cases from last week, so not maybe whole districts, but schools. So, most districts are back by now. I think we absolutely made a good sound, health decision by staying remote last week. We're hopeful that we can, in the last 8 weeks, we've only been in school 3 of the 8. I think we would all agree that's not ideal, so we have definitely been very mindful of the health, and of those 8, that doesn't include grade, right? So, we've been very mindful of the health conditions, but I think we all agree that we do what we do much better when we are in school with kids, and if the conditions lead us to a place where we can't be, then we make the appropriate decisions. But, we certainly understand and appreciate where staff members, how they feel. I completely understand and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. But Ms. Walgren raises a good point. Perhaps in the future, we can look to have questions that carry through from survey to survey, so we have comparable data points that we can refer back to.
Yep.
And recognizing obviously that we're having issues with the chat function, but just generally speaking, I appreciate Ms. Walgren asking those questions, but generally, obviously, we prefer for people to ask their own questions, but we recognize that that's not necessarily possible because of technical difficulties, but generally, we prefer that. Anyone else? I don't see any additional raised hands.
Denise Bond has a raised hand.
All right, thank you, Ms. McGovern. We can unmute Ms. Bond.
Hello?
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead, Ms. Bond. Can you say your name and your address, please?
Denise Bond, Oakhurst. All right, so I just wanted to say that I was looking at the data. I think it came from your district overall, but it did seem that where we were with these colors seemed to have been a lot less than what you're saying as far as community outspread. And another thing I'd like to know is, were any of these people tested for the flu, or is everybody just going for COVID tests, okay? Or disease? And there's one more question I have. Oh yeah. And the other thing is I transferred my daughter to, I have 4, and I can only afford 1. So she's out and she's getting an education and doing really well for that one. But for my 3 older ones that would like to go to school, they can't go to school in person 5 days a week. But the parents can still decide to do all remote. Is that correct?
Yes, all remote remains an option. The hybrid, all remote remains an option, yes.
Right, and then,
Ms. Bond, it's very difficult to hear you. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Can't hear her. Let me see if it's my volume on this.
There we go. That
Better.
improved it.
It did? Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem.
All right, and the other thing I wanted to say is, when, before I transferred my daughter, I'd like to say that I was called by the school nurse. So they probably went to school, I'd say, 8 days out of the whole school year, and she's in 1st grade. And I was called every day. And right before we closed, okay, on December 14th, I had to pay out all these co-pays and stuff and take my daughter to the doctor when, number one, we've already had it. We have antibodies, so we don't really care, because we can't give it or get it. And the reasoning was that the masks have side effects, whether you want to realize that or not. And you can take a look at other states like Governor Nome in South Dakota, DeSantis in Florida, what they're doing and how their kids are in school. But these side effects are true, that when you first wear these masks all day like that, you get like a headache, you get eye irritation, all kinds of stuff. So on that last day on December, I believe it was the 14th or the 15th, and then they were like called in all remote for the holiday thing, I was called. at like 2:30 in the afternoon, which I went and I fought with the school. I was like, my daughter is coming here on December 15th. So I picked my daughter up. I took her right to the doctor and they said, oh yeah, and by the way, she also has a fever of 99. Paid another copay, talked to my doctor, and these are, you know, side effects from the masks. You know, so what is going to be your protocol going forward? Because people should not have to pick their kids up and take their kids to doctors, you know, wasting more time and more money for stuff that's not true. My doctor wrote me a note, checked her out fully, and she was fine. And it was because of the masks.
Thank you, Ms. Bond. I think, you know, I think we all understand that masks are here to stay for the foreseeable future. These protocols that we have in place are what are enabling us to have the kids in school for the amount of time and days that we have been and are able to. So masks are here to stay. But as you said, and I apologize that there's been inconvenience to you and to your family, but you know, we need to adhere to the protocols to make sure that we're protecting the students and the staff in all of these schools. And there are rules and there are guidelines, and the only way that we can keep the kids and the teachers safe is by adhering to them. But as you mentioned when you first started speaking, all remote remains an option. So that will, you know, remain an option for you if that is what you think is best for your family.
That isn't what I think is best. I think I want my kids in school, but I can only afford to pay one to get a real education.
Well, I think, you know, I think we all think the kids here in Ocean are getting a real education, and it's the teachers are doing the best they can to make the school year seem as normal as possible. But we are operating under a pandemic, right? None of us asked for this, and none of us can make it go away on our own. But we have the protocols that are in place that keep our kids and our teachers safe and that are preventing the in-school spread so that we can keep the kids in person. So the choices that are presented to the families are either an all virtual option, or if the kids are going to be in school, you have to abide by the masking, the distancing, and the health protocols of if your child is symptomatic, they're going to be asked to leave school and present, you know, with an alternate diagnosis or a negative test before they're able to return. And that's the reality that services the district in its entirety.
Did you just say a negative test? So basically you're saying that, because this is what exactly happens if you haven't figured it out for yourself yet. When you first wear a mask, so let's say you wear it for one day.
Now, Ms. Bond, you know, I appreciate this, and it certainly is public comment, but we are not going to debate the use of masks during this meeting. The mask mandate is something that's been adopted by the district, but it's also from the state. So there's going to be no changes to the mask mandate on this call and this meeting tonight. If you have specific concerns about your child's ability to wear a mask, you certainly can discuss that with your building principal or your building nurse, or contact Dr. Stefankowitz.
Okay, so then what is going to change your protocol? Because every day, so if they're only going to school like 2 days, then within those 2 days, my kid comes home with a headache or eye irritation. It goes away in a couple of days, but it's every time they have to wear a mask. But I want my kids in school and they want to be in school. But I should want to take my kid to go get a negative COVID test.
Yeah, and the vast majority of students, Ms. Bond, the vast majority of students, staff, teachers, administrators are masked for the full day and are able to accommodate the restrictions that are in place. Is this ideal? No. Do I want to be sitting here with the mask on with my colleagues? Of course not. But this is the reality of the situation that we're in. And most students are able to, and we've made accommodations for those who medically cannot. And if you have specific concerns regarding your child or your children, start with your school nurse, your child's teacher, your child's principal. And then if that's not being addressed, you can of course always come to Dr. Stefankowitz. But we certainly are not going to be evolving or changing the mask protocols. We don't even have the ability to do that. If we stopped masking, we would have to close our schools. But we're not going to be debating that.
Okay, I did provide a note. My note was not accepted. I did provide another note. That note was not accepted. Okay, and third of all, or finally, I would like to say that what you just said to me was that if my kid goes to school, so if they have all these breaks on remote and everything, and then they go back to school one day here and there, and they get a headache or an eye irritation, I'm going to have to take my kid to the doctor and make them take a COVID test when they don't have COVID. Sorry, I don't feel comfortable shoving nasal swabs up my kid's nose that far.
Well, then the alternative is to abide by the quarantine restrictions that are your advised by your school's nurse. Dr. Swing, anything to add? If not,
No, I will just say that Mrs. Bond has addressed this with her nurse, with her principal, with myself. We've had multiple conversations about this, and you know, I mean, we've addressed the concern, I think, as best we can.
Well, your protocol, I think I'm going to have to report your school for your protocols then, because they're not accurate. And I provided 2 doctor's notes. And for you to tell me that my doctor, who has 41 years experience, isn't good enough for you?
Thank you, Ms. Bond. Ms. Conway, has anyone else raised their hands?
I do not see anyone at this point. Let me just take one more look. No, I do not see anybody else that would like to make a public comment on the agenda.
All right, thank you. And as a reminder to everyone, there is a second comment period, so you can always comment again at the end of the meeting. Moving on to the action items, Mr. Weinstein, for the approval of minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to move to approve the meeting minutes in accordance with the Board of Education. Let me see my list here. Bylaws number 0168, recording of the board meetings for December 15th, 2020. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Does anybody have any comments or?
I just wanted to add too that for new board members, if you weren't there, you technically, if you read them and understand them, you can vote. But if you don't feel comfortable, you always have the option to abstain on the vote.
Right. And if there was something that somebody saw that they felt was out of line, you can say something as well. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say or make a comment about the minutes? This is my first minute reading, so let's have this go smooth. Inside the minutes on
It's
the
a
top
link.
of the agenda?
Yeah. So that may be.
There's a little clock, Alex, where it says
The little
the
clock on
minutes,
the-
and then there's a little clock.
Yeah, it's a little different format. It's yeah. Okay. All right, so we can do a voice vote on this. So we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
No one opposed? Any abstentions? And so it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Weinstein. Presentation of policies and regulations. Mr. John Rowan, do you want to go through this, please?
Sure. Okay. So as a continuation from last week and really last month, as we've been reviewing some policies from our policy company, Strauss Esme, that they have presented to us that policies that required to be updated. So, and I know we discussed last week that we were going to try to get on as much as we can. There were some questions from board members, and I did receive yesterday from Ms. Tallarico, Ms. Hayes, and Ms. Gilman some comments on some other bylaws that requesting for those to be looked at and discussed. So I'll have them on for the next workshop meeting. So I received them yesterday, so I got to go through them, give them to our policy company for them to look at, and then we'll put them on the next workshop meeting. So for tonight, we'll look at this batch, and then we'll have another batch, and we'll probably over the next month or so have, because we still have some from Strauss Esme in the regular updates that have come through that we still need to approve. And then we have, the board members. I know the president talked about a policy committee. So however that morphs, we'll figure it out. But we're going to be reviewing and updating policies over the next couple months. So any questions? We had about 3 bylaws and other. And Marianne, I don't know if you can share the screen on the on the policy agenda or go back to the policy agenda.
Ken,
Not-
So we have Ms. Tallarico, Ms. Gilman, and Ms. Hayes who wanted to ask questions, at least to start.
And also just one quick reminder before, there's a summary from Strauss Esme that talks about each policy and the reasons why they're being, updated, statutory, things of that nature, and why they're being changed. So that's, I believe, the first attachment, and the attachments that give a little explanation.
yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you.
So, okay,
Um,
questions then?
So Grace Ann goes first.
I just had a question of the process with the policy company. So how do they determine when they update policies? Do we have to ask them to update policies? Like, what is the process? I'm just new to this company.
Yeah, the process is they see what any changes that come across from the governor, statutes, of course, any laws that are changed, any case law, things that happen. That sometimes it may just be a language change, that something happened in a certain district with one of their policies that they feel should be updated, with all of the policyholders. Strauss Esme is definitely the highest number of school districts, or have the highest number of school districts in the state of New Jersey as far as policy clients go. New Jersey School Boards also has many clients. So they're the two big ones that develop policy, and they both have very similar process where any changes that they see, whether in mostly law, but any other changes that come across, then they push out a policy to all of their districts, and then that comes to us in an alert. And then and you see on the agenda, this was an alert probably a month or so ago. And then we bring that to then what they say the changes should be, we have to take that policy, compare it to our policy, because there could be differences, right? So just because they say that this is a model policy, we don't always accept that model. There's some things we have to accept because it could be it's mostly tied to law, right? But the board could choose to go a little bit in more detail, or a little bit more, just have more detail in the policy than say the law. So then we have to match those up and then present it to the board with, the strike through and bold is the method we use so that the board can tell what the changes have been from what's being reviewed and what our current policy is. And then that goes through a first reading. Of course, any questions that the board has, oh, I'm sorry, I missed a step. After we get the alert, we send it to, so for example, the athletic policy went to the athletic director. So he would review it. So the people that it affects, we send to it before it comes to the board. So if they have any questions or comments or concerns, that we know that, coming to the board. And then the first reading with the board, any questions, comments, more information, we get that. And then the second reading and final adoption. And then after that, then we send it back out to the people that we asked to review it to begin with, so that they are aware of any changes that go on in the policy. So that's about, so it's intensive, and I know there's some, and this has also changed. And I know a couple of things that you've pointed out. It's changed hands a little bit as we've consolidated some of our administration. And I think there was a question about who the special projects administrator was. That was the person who was handling policy before I did it, maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. So I was the lucky volunteer to get the policy. When
So it's you?
I didn't really raise my hand, but Jim kind of picked me. So, but that was a position that was in
volunteer
in central office.
That's how I remember.
Actually,
I just remember the
think I did.
title, when I was teaching, that we had a
Right.
director of special projects.
Right.
So maybe you can tell me, Ken, who is the human resource officer? Is that you as well?
Well, that's
Are you trained in
Absolutely.
the domestic violence update? according to the new bylaw that was posted? That was
We, you know,
pretty intense.
We have, I mean, I've received, training in all of these kinds of things, but, I mean, we are a district that is of the size that, we don't have, many of us wear many hats. And
Yeah.
so,
So that's
we all
you.
work in these capacities, yes. I mean, in terms of HR, I do a lot of it, Ken will do some of it, I mean, Kelly does some of it, I mean, we all kind of chip in and do what we have to do, but it's an area that technically my office oversees.
Yeah, we've discussed that, and some board members may remember that the budgets last couple of years, we've talked about hiring a human resources administrator, and we've just never been able to afford it or make that decision that it's a top priority to do it. So.
Well, I'm glad that you also mentioned, Mr. Janaron, that we just kind of take these policies and make them our own, because I had to laugh when I was reading the postnatal policy about a woman who is lactating, signing out, finding the room, expressing the milk, signing back in, and going back. Any woman who has ever
I think one thing
nursed a child knows that, look, it's there.
I think
Like,
that
wow, I need to sign in and out.
I think the one thing in particularly in that type of situation is that there's policy and then there's practice and procedure. So obviously what's really important out of the policy, to use that policy as an example, is that we are working to make accommodations for people
Yes.
who need to,
That's important.
avail themselves of that situation, right? How we do that is typically worked out at the building level between administrator and individual, and accommodations are made that are mutually, agreed upon. So, those are always things you have to remember when we talk about policy, and then, there's policy and then there's how
The
it gets
real
done
deal.
every day, right? It's like, as a teacher, right? There's teaching textbooks, but then there's what you do every day in the classroom, right? Those things are there's differences.
Yes,
Right.
you're right.
Ms. Hayes?
Thank you, Mr. Janaron. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Regarding the domestic violence policy, it mentions a second.
I need a different mic for Alex.
Yeah.
It's,
Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep cutting you off, Alex, but I really like.
I mean, you can,
Yeah, I can't hear.
You
I
have-
can't
you
hear
have
you.
to go to-
Can you hear me over there?
No.
you have to go to either this one or that one.
Please go to the podium, Alex.
Jim, don't touch it.
Don't. Oh, we can't
Yeah, it's.
Ken getting very nervous as Dr. Sabankwitz approaches the soundboard.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
You can hear me?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
No. I'd rather be heard. So who is the assistant HRO that would possibly be involved in the domestic violence policy?
Ken, would you like to be the assistant HRO?
But see, therein lies my problem.
We don't have one as a district.
Okay, and please don't take this as an insult to you. But being a woman and being somebody who was a rape educator in college, under no circumstances can I support anything where a female employee is being suggested or asked to report an incident of domestic violence or sexual assault to a male, particularly a superior. So whether you are the main HRO for the district, I have humongous reservations that you are the person that somebody would come to. And obviously, I mean, I know men can be victims of domestic violence and assault. I get it. But it's highly in the other direction. So I think the fact that we haven't had this is a little concerning, but, I'm not saying I don't want you to be it. I'm just saying there has to be, at a minimum, a female on call to get these types of things. And that's my.
Absolutely. And I completely understand and appreciate that. And I think, obviously in these types of situations, to say to someone who is going through something like that, oh, you need to reach out to an HR director or something like that, people typically go to someone that they feel most comfortable with. Our first goal is going to work to get a counselor with that individual and someone who can best relate to that individual. That's always what we're going to do, whether that be our affirmative action officer, our student assistance, or, you know, in this case, you know, student assistance counselors will also work with our adults. We have human resources that we work with. So there's lots of resources.
So could we put that perhaps in the policy, or maybe school nurses, or maybe have a,
Yeah, I mean, we
a
can-
sexual
yeah,
response
we can-
team or
we can
something?
absolutely, you know, that's easy, you know, because, right, I agree with you 100% that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, someone who's in a school to make their way over to our offices here, in this instance, is probably not
Realistic or ideal.
realistic or logical in any way.
I mean,
We
and
can
then.
make those changes.
Yeah, and there is also the, you know, you're a superior to hundreds of people, you know, so even in a building principal shouldn't even be the person, in my opinion, that, you know, a teacher should feel they have to go to, or whatever the case. But
Yeah, I mean, typically it is going to be some form of administrator as the sort of policy, you know, person listed in the policy, but we can certainly, in each building, make people aware that if they're experiencing this type of situation, who they should be going to. And, you know, and in most cases, it is going to be counseling staff and or their administrator, you know, can be.
I just would like to see that in the
Yeah,
in the wording.
We'll
Yeah,
check it
yeah.
out, we'll make some wording changes, and then we'll review it again next week.
And my only second other comment was about the breastfeeding. Was there a 1-year expiration on that? Did I read? It's hard for me to pull this up here right now.
Did say 1 year.
So I was a little, I mean, I breastfed both of my kids past a year. I think a lot of people do. So I don't really know if we should have a,
I don't think we would, like I said, I think we want
Like-
to make accommodation. And
Sure.
We're not gonna say, oh, it's been a year, sorry, you can't do this.
I would hope.
I think the root of that is that the legislation that was enacted that requires this required that there be a 1-year provision, that it couldn't be less than that.
Couldn't be less
So
than.
when this was promulgated, it was probably as a result of that legislation that required a 1 year, so
Okay.
that someone wouldn't do less than 1 year, is my understanding, assuming it's referring back to the bill that I think it is.
I can double check that too, to make sure it's at least, maybe we can
Yeah.
make that.
And we're gonna.
Yeah.
And why do they have to?
Take a timetable out, right? So, right, because what is it? Unless you have to put in the timeline, why would we even want to specify one?
Why do they have to clock in and clock out? Is that a collective bargaining thing? Like, as an employee,
I don't know that we've ever done that.
don't you get a 10-minute break every, 6 hours if you work in New Jersey or something like that? Or am I imagining that?
Schools run differently, you know, it depends. But once again, you know, these are the kind of situations where when somebody comes to us, you know, I mean, the one thing about policies is, you know, obviously they have to exist and they're there. But a lot of times we work with our staff, we use common sense, we make the accommodations that need to be made. To my knowledge, we've never had anyone come and complain that we haven't accommodated them if they need to be accommodated. So, you know, I think that I guess my point is, I don't know that we should get bogged down in some of this language, because we're going to address the need of people.
Dr. Stefankowitz, we're having a hard time hearing you now.
Sorry.
No, because he's facing me.
I must have
Sorry.
messed with the board over there. And
Yeah, I'm sorry. You guys.
I
really-
was off the mic. I was off
I
the
know,
mic.
and Gracie Ann had her
Sorry.
hand up. I apologize for.
Oh, sorry.
That was my question too. So if you have to clock in and out for that break, the people that are breastfeeding don't get compensated? They're not being paid?
Nobody clocks in and out. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, but it says that they're not being.
Once again, there's sometimes there's just policies and there's language that may be part of language, that there may be some districts that require some people to do that. You know, that is not something we require people to do. And so now we're not going to sit there and say, oh, our policy says you need to clock in, and, you know, we're going to work with people and we're going to do what works for them.
And I can check that language. Like Janice said, usually that's language is taken from whatever is passed by law. So I can check.
Right. I
and
mean,
see if that
certainly,
is something.
if it doesn't need to be there, we can see
Right.
that it even needs to be there at
Right,
all.
we can customize it.
But I guess my point is, I don't want us to get
That up.
upset about something that isn't going to happen.
Well, I don't know that it's a matter of getting upset. I think putting an HR hat on, it's a matter of the language is there. So in a court of law, it is what's written. So what's in writing should match what we practice
Right.
as much as we can.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Sure.
Are we expecting to go over each one of these documents now and talk about the edits, or are we gonna?
Yeah,
go
if you have
through
any
it?
questions or about the language.
Or is there
yeah.
gonna be another set of stuff that's coming out that we're gonna have to edit as well? You said there was another round of things
Of separate policies.
Of separate
For
policies.
this policy, right, it should be read, reviewed by the board, and any questions, we should go through it now, like we just have, and then I can check on, you know, the language and check with Strauss Esme and their lawyers and see if it is something that we have flexibility, and if it is, then we can come back with sample language or to change it, and then the next review by the board, we can decide on what language to go with.
That sounds good.
Any questions related to these policies that are on today's agenda? Let's see here. Good? Everyone? All right, so then we'll look for revisions, excuse me, and discuss further next week. Thank you, Mr. Janaron. Moving through the agenda, financial management and resource services, Ms. Gilman.
Certainly, Ms. Fuller, there are 3 items for our consideration this evening. 8.1, use of facilities indoors. The Board of Education and Administration will discuss the indoor use of facilities, school buildings, by outside groups for the month of February and/or beyond, as listed below. 8.2, the Chamber of Commerce. The Board of Education and Administration will discuss additional rent forgiveness for the Greater Ocean Township Chamber of Commerce as per the attached. 8.3, Clean Energy Smart Start Building Program. The Board of Education and Administration will discuss accepting funds from the NJ Clean Energy Grant Program reimbursement for gymnasium LED light fixture replacement at OTES and the high school in the amount of $3,600 and $8,600 respectively. This lighting upgrade was completed by the district electrician and maintenance staff, and the attachment were 3 very nice photographs of the project. Mr. Janaron, any comments?
And can I just ask before we go to Mr. Janaron, Ms. Conway, can you reshare the agenda on the Zoom screen so that everyone can see it, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good idea.
Mr.
And those
Janaron.
pictures were also very good of the
Yeah.
new
you know what?
LED lights.
Let me just go in order, I guess. So 8.1 is the use of facilities for indoor use of facilities by outside groups. Now, this is, of course, the discussion we've had every month for the past few months. So we're having the discussion, you know, we're in January, but the discussion is for the use of facilities in February. So I think administratively, we agree that our recommendation is still to hold out another month, but that's up to the board.
Second the motion.
I agree with that myself.
Yes.
Agree.
Let me-
Can you just
Agree.
confirm again when you say outside, would
So-
it be like a rec program? So anything non-school related?
Correct, right. So PTAs, the basketball team, those, they're of course still using the buildings, you know, if they're considered school functions, but churches, the things that we've, you know, rented in the past, they would not be allowable uses as of yet. Now we do, and if it's the soccer field, that's okay, but inside the building. So that's where we've drawn the line. Okay, number 2, the Chamber of Commerce, you see the letter there. It did sound a little, I did not get a chance to talk to Kathy this time yet, but it did sound a little positive that going forward that they may be able to do some things. So they're asking for continued rent forgiveness till April 1st. So again, that's a discussion item, and that'll be up for a formal, you know, vote next week. So are there any questions regarding that item?
How much do they pay per month?
It's 8,000 a year, so divided by 12.
Thank you.
All right, and then finally, as Mrs. Gilman said, the pictures in there, it's the high school, and there was 2 in the high school and 1 of the Dow Avenue School. These are new LED fixtures. There are double rebates out there now, and luckily we have a very talented electrician and maintenance staff. So we've been able to utilize some of the time when the students are on all remote, and been able to pick up some little projects like this that we don't normally always have the time for. But so it's worked out great. You know, there's a noticeable difference if you walk in there. There's more lighting. Of course, that it's with more lighting, there's decreased consumption, and it's basically all the equipment was paid for almost 100% through these double rebates. The bulbs last longer, so there's less maintenance. There are all kinds of benefits to this. Next, we're looking at the high school cafeteria, intermediate school, the mini gym in the back, and then in Wayside gymnasium. So we'll keep doing this, and with these rebates, we're trying to do as much as we can while the double rebate still lasts.
How
So,
about this room? I hate these ones.
as you could tell with the rug, and this room usually comes last on the
I'm sure.
on the list, but sooner or later we may need to do something here.
Yes, for a later day.
Okay, and I think that's it for finance. If there are any other questions?
Any questions at home?
I wish she had put those pictures up.
No. All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gilman. And then moving on to instruction, education, and student activities. Back to Ms. Gilman, please. Thank
Certainly.
you.
We have several items for our consideration this evening. 9.1, non-resident tuition student for the 2020-2021 school year. Move to approve the following non-resident student to attend the Township of Ocean School District for the 2020-2021 school year, January 2021 through June 2021 on a tuition basis as listed below. 9.2, cancellation to out-of-district private tuition for the 2020-2021 school year. Move to approve a cancellation to out-of-district private tuition for the 2020-2021 school year in accordance with the attached memorandum dated December 18th, 2020, as listed below. 9.3, professional development items for our staff. Move to approve the attached memorandum dated January 7th, 2021. Staff professional development activities in accordance with District Policy 6471 and NJAC 6A:23A-7. The attendance at said activities is fiscally prudent and will promote the delivery of instruction and/or will further the efficient operation of the district. Reimbursement for travel and related expenses shall be according to the Department of the Treasury guidelines and NJOMB Circular 06-02 and A-87 as listed below. Part of our strategic plan goals, student success, objective 1, activities 9 and 16. Comments, Mr. Janarone or Dr. Stefankowitz?
Yeah, those are, they're pretty straightforward items. If there's any questions on any of those.
No. So we'll need a second on those items.
Second.
We need a second.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Amy?
Is that Talarico?
I think-
Who is this?
I believe
Is Amy?
I thought it was
Amy,
Amy,
okay.
yes.
Thank you, Ms. Gilman.
Okay, so these are items, instruction 1 through 3 for vote. Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern?
Yes.
Mrs. Parlamas?
Yes.
Ms. Talarico?
Yes.
Ms. Tortorello?
Yes.
Ms. Weinstein?
Yes.
And Ms. Fuller?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Motion.
Thank you again, Ms. Gilman.
Welcome.
Moving to personnel, Ms. Parlamas.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to move items 10.1 through 10.12. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Three.
I know.
No, I don't. Mr. Janarone, can you please call?
Okay. Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilman?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Paralamas,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
Ms. Tortorello,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
and Ms. Fuller.
Yes,
Okay, the motion is carried.
thank you, Ms. Paralamas. Public relations, we have one item, the discussion of food service update. Mr. Jenner, would you like to say anything, or should we go right to Ms. Wagner?
I just wanted to say that, well, Sodexo has been doing a great job with working with
Yes.
the food bank. And I'm going to introduce Jackie Wagner, who's the district manager of our food service program here. So I don't know if Mary Ann, if you can unmute Jackie,
Yes,
if you're
and I'll
there.
echo what Ken said. We are
And-
all very thankful to you, Ms. Wagner, and your team,
And there are
and
pics-
everyone there for
yeah.
everything you've done.
And there are some
Thank
pictures on the
Thank you.
agenda. There's some pictures of what Jackie's going to talk about, so everyone can take a look at them as she's describing the program. that we're-
Okay. Can you all hear me right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So you all know every Wednesday we've been distributing since March, and we've really seen an increase in participation. And we're always wondering what else could we do? What more could we do? So I reached out to the Monmouth and Ocean County Fulfill Food Bank and explained, what we're doing in Ocean, and just to see if there were any other opportunities they had for us. And they were like overwhelmingly responsive and wanted to help right away. Actually, the call was like maybe 2 weeks ago, and today I'm happy to say the district received 400 boxes of shelf-stable food that we're going to be distributing tomorrow with our bags at all of our locations. So it would be 1 box per family. The great thing about this is if we do have leftover at sites, we just bring it back to our kitchen and put it in our storage. And I could watch from the inventory and the participation of it weekly, and whatever I need, I just call Fulfill and I let them know, and they deliver it, they unload it off the truck. They have been amazing. And the 400 boxes are like all over my kitchen right now, but just imagine all these boxes were filled by volunteers at Fulfill. So it's really a great organization to be partnering with the district.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner. Does anyone have any questions for Jackie about this, or while we have her, anything else?
I do also just wanted to thank the bus drivers, because this is now, and the food service staff, because this is going to take, we have some I don't think I was attached to pictures of the pallets of boxes that this is. These are groceries in boxes.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Maria in the transportation department, Mr. Bosman in facilities, and food services have been amazing working together, and I'm just truly thankful to be having them by my side as well as Dr. Stavakis and Mr. Janarone. Like, they were really, really accepting to this.
Excellent, outstanding.
Yeah, maybe Jackie, do you want to describe some of the food that's in the boxes?
Yeah, so you all.
Marian, if you scroll down a little bit, Marian, please. Keep going.
Yeah.
Oh, the meal kits, go.
So I opened up a couple of the boxes today, and kind of just like the picture, there's shelf-stable milk in there. There's some canned beefs in there. There's dried pasta in there. There's applesauce. There's dried cereals in there. Oatmeals are also in there. And they also gave a flyer. I sent it to you today, Mr. Janarone, just about assistance that's also out there. So when a family gets this box tomorrow, there's also going to be this flyer from Fulfill of families that are in need for other things, and they could call them confidentially. So it's really a great thing.
And then this is in addition to the 7 days
This,
of
yes, yeah,
food that we're also providing, correct?
correct.
Ms. Tortorello had a.
First, thank you so much. This is amazing. It's a wonderful service. I'm just curious, are these for any families, or is there a qualification?
Anybody.
Okay.
Anyone who comes up, they have the option to take one of the boxes. Fulfill didn't want to know, like, any, who was taking them. They just said, what's your demand? And here you go. How often do you want it? So we're going to learn a lot tomorrow of what we'll need next week.
Okay, awesome. Thank you again.
Jim, do you know the people there at Fulfill, or?
Some of them, yeah.
Oh, I mean, maybe a letter from us to them, kind of appreciating something, or, yeah.
I could send you also who I've been in touch with, the dietitian. Actually, Mr. Janahan also has that.
Yeah, I have it. I've
Yep.
spoken to her.
Mhm.
Are we sending this flyer home, in a backpack to kind of push it a little even more for tomorrow?
Yeah, it's a good idea. We can do that. Absolutely.
Great.
Anyone else? Ms. McGovern, Ms. Tallarico? Jackie, thank you again. You've never rested for a minute and always coming up with new ideas and more resources to provide to the families. Above and beyond doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of what you've done. So we're appreciative of it. And so are the families. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so moving along, old business. Any old business from the board? Seeing none. Where's Amy? Are you raising your hand?
New business, sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, seeing none. So moving on then to new business. We'll start with Ms. McGovern, and that she jumped the line a bit, but we'll start with Ms.
All right.
McGovern.
No, I just wanted to say, being home, last week, I apologize, and tonight Brian got stuck in the city working, but it is definitely a whole different experience, right? Being home, I know Grace Ann knows this firsthand, and many of you that have been home. And because there's more of you in there tonight with the mics, I don't know if there's different kinds of mics that you have, Ken, on the front end versus the back end. But the other thing is, I know that we tried to get the tables so that everybody was seen on the Board of Ed camera, which I don't know that that's the most important thing, because most everybody has their own Chromebook sitting there, so you can see everybody's face at all times. So if we need to spread out more in there, I mean, I expect to be there next week. If we spread out more, even if you don't see everybody on the Board of Ed camera, I don't think that's the problem. I think making sure that everybody has the good mic and and they have their own face on there would be more prudent than having everybody into the space of the camera. So that's just my observation from here.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll figure out a way to test the mics before next
Well,
week.
it's only one mic. I think everybody.
But even I
when
would
you-
say, when you moved, Ken, your mic, you were much lower, so there is, I don't know.
You really gotta,
Well, you have
keep close to it. Is that the deal?
The difficulty is when you're talking to someone and you're like looking
Yeah.
to them. And if you don't have the mic close to you, it's not going to pick it up. So it's just a habit that we have to all get into.
But you're also not as loud now as you were when you were sitting behind you, and you're looking into the mic right now.
I mean, we checked all the mics. Maybe it was Jim touching. He was touching
Yeah,
the
Dr.
controls.
Craig
for
would
a little-
touch the soundboard.
Yeah, I messed with it. It's my
But,
fault.
and Ms. McGovern,
That was the
earlier we were talking about ways to utilize more space here. If we flip the camera to near the doors, we could utilize the dais for seating, give us some more options. So we're going to see, given that we have more members present, which is a wonderful thing, how we can better use the space. So thank you. I saw Ms. Gilman, Mr. Weinstein. I'm not sure if anyone else, but go ahead, Ms. Gilman.
Just something I was reading about, a legislative update. There are a series of 5 bills that are advancing that deal with student mental health issues. And these are grants that I hope that we'll be applying for if they continue their way through the legislature, and I think that they will. School-based mental health services, a student wellness grant program, a task force, student mental health task force, and a lot of resources that will help our student population with mental health counseling. So I hope that when these measures finally make it through, that we will apply for those grants, and I'm sure Ms. Weldon is on it already. But just to point that out, these are resources that our district.
How would you made aware of that, Irene? How did you,
It's in the bulletin that
Oh, the
we get,
bulletin.
Jeff,
Oh,
the
okay, you read the
New
school board,
Jersey
school
School
board,
Board
right, school board, yeah.
legislative update.
Great.
We also get it online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you flag when you have a chance, just the bill numbers for those, not now, but later, just so that we can all kind of track them when you have a chance, if it has the bill number?
The numbers?
Yeah, is it in, well, I can get it from you after. It's just-
Sure.
Thank you, thank you.
Absolutely.
That way we can all track it. and
Yeah.
follow it. Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Gilman?
No, thank you.
Mr. Weinstein?
My comments are on the lighter side, so if anybody has something more involved. Okay, well, we have students that I guess attend Ohio State and Alabama. So being the Ohio State Buckeye representative on the board, I just thought it would be appropriate to congratulate my colleague, Amy, for all she did to bring the Tide to a championship. Now, truth be told, we had a conversation before this, and she told me that a couple of calls that would have went our way, we would have won the championship. So I appreciate you saying that, Amy, but congratulations.
Jeff, I think they could have used you in the backfield last night.
Well, I did get a text right after he got hurt, and I said, okay, I can't get down there quick enough, but
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Anyone else for new business? Okay, seeing none. All right, so we will go to the second public comment at this time. Would anyone from the public like to comment? This can be on any item. Please again use the raise hand function under reactions, and we'll unmute you.
Our first public comment is from Albert Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Can you just state your name and your address for the record, please?
Yeah, Albert Miller, 16 Iris Court, Howell, New Jersey. Good evening, board members, administration. Happy School Board Recognition Month. I'm Al Miller, president of the Monmouth County School Boards Association. The county officers and myself are trying to virtually attend as many local meetings as possible. So I'm here this evening to join you for your meeting this evening. I first want to offer our congratulations to your new and returning board members, and also congratulations to your 2021 president and vice president, and I wish your entire board success in 2021. We also want to thank all your staff, administration, and board members for all your hard work and dedication to your students and your district during this difficult pandemic that we're going through. If you haven't done so already, we're asking that you please appoint a representative to the Monmouth County School Boards Association. Our meeting scheduled for this 2021 year is February 11th. We're going to have a joint meeting with Ocean virtually at 7:30, and the topic is going to be superintendent evaluations. We're still working to figure out our 8th grade dialogue. It is going to be virtual here, and it'll probably be towards the end of March instead of the beginning. And the beginning of March 2nd is probably going to be a local president's meeting and new school board member meeting. So more information for both those meetings will be coming out. May 13th is going to be our legislative meeting where we'll have legislators come in virtually, our board member awards, and our county officer elections, which will be for our president, our vice president of legislation, our board of directors delegate, and our board of directors alternate. The call for officers will be coming out in the next couple of months. So please consider to run for one of those positions. And lastly, we just want to wish your district a happy and healthy 2021, and we hope to see you at one of our county meetings. Thank you.
Mr. Miller, thank you very much for being here tonight. That was a nice gesture, and we appreciate all the work that school boards has done over the course of this last year in helping guide us at so many times as we confronted unprecedented things. I'm sure if you heard me mention earlier, we're going to be reconstituting our committees, but also determining our designee as well. So we'll be getting that name to you very shortly. So we thank you for that. Anyone else for public comment, Ms. Conway?
I do not see anybody at this time. Let me take one more look, please.
Yes, we'll give everyone a moment, recognizing our technical difficulties.
I Do not see anybody else, though, at this time.
All right. Thank you for your help tonight. With that, that'll conclude the meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Thank you. Good night. Sorry. Good. Thank you.
I got the second.